Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Ta-da! Hello. Welcome to Dungeons and Dopamine. I'm Jess.
And I'm Bree.
I just tried to take control in this whole podcast.
And the second time you sounded so formal. Hello, and welcome to Dungeons and Dopamine.
So this is episode 47.
We're getting very comfortable with this now.
That's all.
Just a short episode this week.
Y'all have a great night. Oh, my face hurts from laughing.
Jessica's already so excited about her topic, she just can't stand it.
So excited about my topic. You guys, we don't even need to talk. Let's just go into my topic. I have a lot.
Settle in, get comfy.
I guess it's a good time to remind people because we're gonna create some bonus content. I'm pretty sure there was some major bonus content on the last episode. That if you would like to hear some of our bonus content, our mystery bonus content, you can partake in our Patreon.
Yep. Our stuff tends to be a little bit more nerdy over on the Patreon side. It's a lot more of our book stuff and
sometimes just tangents that we get off onto.
And
bloopers.
Funny stuff. So much funny stuff. The bloopers are, I mean, we're hilarious in general, so when we're messing up, it's even better. So, okay. The April Fool's episode. It came out. Seems like people were okay with it. Nobody, threatened our lives about it or anything like that. Yet.
Right. Fair.
It's only been out a week.
But do you know how much laughter I had to edit out of that episode? Gratuitous laughing.
I laughed the entire time I listened to it, so I can imagine.
Same. But yeah, I had a lot of editing on that episode, and you wouldn't have thought because it was a pretty smooth episid, but
just so much laughing.
We laughed a lot.
How did you guys lose listeners? Well,
laughter.
We had these episodes that were just pretty much solid laughter.
It was rough. I think we should do another one. I thought it was hilarious.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just for us.
More bonus content.
Love it. I'm ready. I'm in. So, one thing that you had an epiphany last episode, but I don't think we pointed it out a lot.
Oh, I interrupt myself all the time.
Yes.
To start new thoughts.
And I just want to point out to everyone that it's not my editing.
It's totally Bree's brain.
Also,
just to make sure.
I'm feeling very attacked by your recent videos you've been sending me.
Can we first just be impressed that I'm able to watch a couple videos a day now?
I'm not gonna lie. I was like, wow, she's doing it. What is going on?
I'm still struggling with opening the TikTok app, so I'm only watching Facebook Reels at this point.
You're working your way there.
But I'm getting a couple in a day.
Yeah. I'm impressed. Although I'm also victimized by them, so...
It's true. I am only watching, the very hard-hitting, introspective ones about how messed up my brain is.
We should probably share some of them.
Or books. A lot of them are about books.
Yeah, which I love. I think our whole entire TikTok, the Dungeons and Dopamine TikTok, is basically Sarah Moss content.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
So... I just want to talk about my topic.
Go for it. I'm here for it.
Did you know that there is a Michigan Triangle in Lake Michigan?
Like the Bermuda Triangle, but in Michigan?
Exactly like the Bermuda Triangle.
What?
All right.
Tell me more.
First, I'm going to start you with a fun fact. Michigan has been home to some of the most reported UFO sightings in the United States.
I did not expect you to say that.
I know. I didn't expect to read it.
This opens so many doors for you.
Right? What? Let me move on. That's just a fun fact. Okay. So the Lake Michigan Triangle. It goes from Ludington to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, to Benton Harbor, back to Ludington.
That's not that far from here.
No, it's not.
We're going to have the best Michigan tour.
Seriously. I'm not going to do this triangle, though. just throwing that out there now. Out of the 5 Great Lakes, it is said that Michigan is the most dangerous because of the currents and the horrible storms that happen in November, specifically in November. Lake Michigan consists of more disappearances per unit area than the Bermuda Triangle.
What?
One of the first reported accidents was in 1617, and this was a Frenchy French dude. His name was René Lebert LaSalle.
That sounds like the most French name I've ever heard.
Right? He was given some land in New France, which is a little bit of a throwback to my Mackinac Island episode, because apparently when the French came here, they called it New France because they couldn't do better than that. He became a popular and successful fur trader. He built a 10-ton ship to travel with the furs, but it wasn't good enough for him. So he built a larger ship called the Le Griffon. The Griffin.
The Le Griffon.
And this is a really big boat, and I wrote it was thick. With 2 C's.
Of course.
It was the largest vessel of its time, although we don't know the exact size of it because over time it's been lost. It was a really popular ship, and when it set sail, a lot of times it would be surrounded by canoes from the local Indian tribes because they were like excited about how big and wild, crazy, and huge it was, which is, I think, kind of amazing. Fun. Yeah, I just really like that. One of its voyages, they went through several of the lakes and got to Lake Michigan. He went to an island where he met with the leader of the Potawatomi tribes, and he did some trading, and then he set the ship sail again without him. There were probably only 6 people aboard, 5 or 6 people at that point, and it got lost in a storm after that. It still has never been found. Many have claimed it, but it's never been verified. In 1860, so we're going to several hundred years later, this might be a whole topic on its own. There was a ship called the Lady Eglin. It was a steamer with a 1,000-pound displacement. So it displaced 1,000 pounds. I can't remember how they worded it. Basically, she moved a lot of water. I'm really disappointed I didn't write that down correctly. Yes, she may even be thicker. She was one of the largest vessels in the water at that time. She launched in 1851, and this ship had the tea. Not like actual tea, but this was like a Gossip Girl episode ship. It was wild, which is why she might become one of my topics pretty soon here.
I love it when topics lead to other topics.
I know, right? So this was the talk of the town for many reasons, but one of those reasons was apparently she was cursed.
Oh.
Which seems likely to me, as she was unceremoniously battered by another ship, and it only took it 20 minutes to sink down to the bottom of the lake, which is super fast to me.
Yeah.
In 1891, the Thomas Hume disappeared within the triangle. The ship left home port of Muskegon, traveling with another ship. The weather got dicey, and the second ship returned to port, and the Thomas Hume was not seen again until 2006 at the bottom of the lake, in nearly perfect condition. The second ship that was sailing with the Hume was also defeated by the triangle. Later on in 1912, it set sail and never returned. It was carrying pine trees. So weirdly enough, Christmas trees began washing up on shore, and they called it the Christmas tree ship. And then eventually at some point, a fisherman caught the captain's wallet and confirmed that the ship had been in fact lost. It was found 165 feet down and without any indication of what sunk her. The Rosabelle.
What?
Yeah.
You just find a ship at the bottom of the ocean and there's no signs on why it's there.
Why are you here?
It's just like a perfect ship at the bottom of the... Okay.
Super weird. And that's far down, 165 feet.
Right.
Anyway, the Roosevelt, it was this ship had a really tough life. I put in quotation marks, but it had a tough life. It actually left once to sail and ended up back in Grand Haven on the port because it got pushed back by a storm. It was bought and repaired and sent out a few more times, and a lot of the times it would come back with damage. Really? It was just a rough ship. In 1921...
Like, don't make me go.
I don't like this. In 1921, the captain who was supposed to take it out on another voyage refused. He said that he had a horrible premonition of danger. So they hired another captain. And on Halloween 1921, a car ferry came across the upside-down Roosevelt.
Oh my gosh.
All the crew was gone, and a lifeboat was drifting alone not too far from there. Nobody in it. They figured the ship had collided with another ship, but no one ever reported a collision. So no other ship, after they waited it out, had reported a collision.
So they found an empty ship.
Capsized.
With a lifeboat missing.
Which they found later,
with
not too far away.
Nobody in it.
Yep.
Huh.
They sent out a rescue ship to get the boat back, and it was forced to abandon the rescue mission because of weather. And when they did finally get it back, there's proof that it may not have been a collision. But they don't know why it sank.
Everybody just went missing.
Yep. So the Carl D. Bradley was a biggin, is what I wrote. It was on its way to dock for the season. It was its 31st season, and it would unfortunately be its last. The Mayday calls from the ship are recorded, and they are very sad.
Oh.
Only 2 of the 35 people on the ship made it. The
cow.
Bradley is reportedly the largest shipwrecked in Lake Michigan. And then this is my last ship story. And it's not really about a ship, it's about a captain. In 1958, Captain George R. Donner told his crew, "Wake me up when we arrive at this certain spot." And he went down to his cabin and went to bed. When the ship got to where he told them to wake him up, the crew went down to wake him. They found the door locked. So they went searching around the ship for him and eventually broke his door down and found absolutely no sign of him. He was never seen again. There was nothing to indicate that he was planning to leave. He wasn't suicidal. None of this would have, there was nothing pointing to him being mentally ill or anything. He was just gone.
And if that was the plan, then why say, "Hey, come get me in a little bit"?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of "Oh, I need as much time to escape as possible."
And how out of a locked... And the cabin door was locked.
Right.
So, anyway, all right. So, obviously, the Triangle, this is not the end of the list of shipwrecks. This was just some of them that I found very interesting. But it doesn't end there. In 1950, Flight 2501 was going from LaGuardia to Seattle, but it had to make a stop in Minneapolis. And to do that, it had to drive over the Triangle. Fly. Had to fly.
And to land.
and drive over. It's real weird. I don't get it. So the pilot, upon flying over the lake, noticed that there was a lightning storm brewing above him, and he requested to be allowed to fly at a lower altitude, but his request was denied. Shortly after that, after that transmission, witnesses said they heard an engine sputtering and then saw a flash of light. Rescuers found body parts and fabric debris on the waters, but the plane has never been found. Author Clive Cussler, heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
He funded many searches for the plane. He did end his involvement kind of like an official way in 2013, but whenever a lead would pop up in the years following, he would send another expedition out.
Interesting.
I know!
It just disappeared?
It just disappeared. Another plane was lost in 1998, and though they've tried to find it, they can't confirm where it is. They thought they found it. It was rocks. They thought they found it again with sonar, but when they went out there for the diver to look, it was deeper than 400 feet, and the diver was only certified up to 400 feet. so they couldn't actually check it out.
And they haven't gone back
I guess, yeah, that's what I was
they
like...
were like, this is our only chance. Okay,
yeah.
bye.
Like, anyway, so the weird thing about this flight, the pilot was a veteran pilot, and his passenger was an actual flight instructor. They radioed in.
So, like,
saying,
the two best people
yeah,
to fly
these
a
are
plane.
the people I would want flying my airplane.
Right.
They radioed in saying they were about 27 miles from the airport and they were going to be back soon. A few minutes later, the tower noticed that there was no longer a plane on their radar. At that point, they sent out all of the search and rescue stuff, but at that time, no one was ever found. I want to read from Wiki directly. And it says, the cause of the disappearance was never determined. Michigan State Police believe the craft crashed into Lake Michigan, but are unsure what caused this to happen. The weather was calm that day. Both men were experienced pilots, and the aircraft was considered to be simple and reliable. The plane was also equipped with parachutes and ejection seats, although it's unknown if the seats were functional. One witness reported hearing a plane flying overhead and then a loud firework-like sound. However, he never saw a plane.
They're just disappearing.
Yeah. They pop out of the world.
Poof. Gone.
I was trying to go in order of dates, but I got a little screwy when I started to get into some of the not shipwreck stories.
Right.
This one gives me the heebie-jeebies. In 1978, Stephen Kubacki was a student at Hope College, and he decided to go on a cross-country ski trek. Then he disappeared for a year. Snowmobilers found footprints for 200 yards that led to the edge of the lake, at the triangle, of course. They also found his abandoned backpack and his skis. It was assumed at that point that he had fallen through the ice. But 1 year and 3 months later, Stephen woke up. He was laying in a field in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 700 miles away from where he disappeared. He was carrying a backpack and wearing strange clothes. His backpack was filled with maps and a shirt from a Wisconsin marathon, like a running marathon. He said he physically felt like he had been doing a lot of running. You know how when you're healthier, you feel like your body can do that?
You're like conditioned for it.
Yeah.
That's insane.
He remembered nothing of that year and 3 months. He said his last memory was of standing on the shoreline of the lake.
The triangle taketh, and the triangle taketh away. Or no, the triangle giveth, and the triangle taketh away.
It's
You're
so
gonna
weird.
be in the best shape of your life.
But
You're
not
gonna run
remember
some
how.
marathons, but you're not gonna have any memory
He
of
has a
it.
secret family.
Right? He might.
Seriously, so weird.
You could have a baby in that time.
Oh, absolutely. Easy. And get married or have a very long-term relationship situated at that point.
Holy cow.
He was really open about it at first, and he talked to the press and kind of went out and talked to about it, but he did eventually ask for privacy, which I don't blame him.
I'd be, yeah. It's like a bad genie wish.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
a genie showed up and his wish was like to win a marathon or something. And he was like, sure, but you won't remember it.
Right, exactly. You'll have the best year in 3 months you've ever had and will ever have. However,
he's got like a secret bank account somewhere with millions of dollars in it. Except he used some name that he doesn't remember, so he's never going to have access to it.
I didn't research him any further because I felt like the asking for privacy extended to now.
Right.
But I was really tempted.
But I really wanted to.
As I said, Michigan has a lot of UFO reports, specifically over the triangle. There have been UFO reports and lights seen in the sky. Some of them by sources that would have been considered very reliable, like police chiefs and things like that.
Oh my gosh. How do I not know about this?
I know!
And it's not far from us.
No.
Pointing at my blank computer screen.
So along with the UFO reports, there have been, I can't remember what they called them.
Underwatery
reports. So, unidentified objects underwater, which is super weird.
Right.
Especially because we don't have anything wildly dangerous in the lakes.
Right. We don't have sharks or
I think pike would be our closest, and I don't know if we have pike in the Lake Michigan. But anyway.
I don't know that much about fish.
So, one of the coolest things that they have found within the triangle is the Lake Michigan Stonehenge.
Excuse me, what?
I'm so excited to tell you about this. So,
this is the best episode ever.
Right? So, the Lake Michigan Stonehenge is a small collection of Stonehenge-like stones. It is a ring approximately 40 feet in diameter with an inner ring approximately 20 feet in diameter. They're about 40 feet below the surface. And when studied, someone found a carving of a mastodon, which has been gone a very long time. Mm-hmm. Estimates say it's around 9,000 years old, which is 4,000 years newer than Stonehenge. Older. Sorry.
I was like,
4,000 years cool. Older than Stonehenge.
What?
The stones are in a Stonehenge-like arrangement, but they are a lot smaller. They're ranged from basketball size to that of a small car and are made from local granite. There's a line of stones that are kind of around this that stretch to about a mile. The man who discovered this, which is actually pretty recent, being in 2007, which I know isn't recent, but it is.
Feels like it.
He did tell the local tribes first out of respect. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to authenticate it very well because a lot of the people who could authenticate it aren't scuba certified.
What a weird holdback.
I know. What a frustrating one. So, theories range. Some people blame the triangle on a negative energy vortex, which is the idea that certain locations emit sacred, powerful, and transformational energy. Although vortexes are typically considered to promote positivity and healing, it's claimed that vortexes with negative energy also exist. Some also blame aliens. Especially,
that's where I'm leaning toward.
Right? Especially when you point to the excess of reports in Michigan and the strange lights specifically reported over that spot. But somehow I managed to get 10 pages of notes. I think I talked really fast into about 20 minutes. And the triangle is so exciting to me. I don't know why.
This is amazing.
So cool.
Speechless.
There's about 600 shipwrecks, they think, in Lake Michigan.
It just doesn't seem like it could be that big.
Right. That's what and they discover more every day. Like, it's wild. I guess every summer or every period of time where it's safe to be in the water like that, they find new wrecks.
And I guess I kind of knew that. Mostly, like, we had one wash up on a lake around here, or a beach around here, I think during COVID. It was like a big news story. But, wow.
Right?
Now I want to get scuba certified.
Seriously.
For more than 400 feet.
Right. And I would love to go to the Stonehenge. I was really excited.
That would have been such a good job for you.
Right? Why did we never think of this?
Because school didn't tell us you could do things like be an underwater scuba diver investigator.
That's
or
true.
A librarian. Okay, they said you could be a librarian, but I assumed you just had to turn 60 and retire, not get a master's degree.
Oh, yeah, I was excited. I was really excited about the Stonehenge. I saved it for last on purpose because you've asked me to research actual Stonehenge.
Yeah.
And I was like, she doesn't
Michigan
know
one.
how close. She could almost touch the one that we have right
Yeah,
here.
it says it's in, Grand Traverse Bay? Did I just read that?
Yeah, and it was found by Holly, a guy named something Holly. I don't think I put where it was from.
Mark Holly. That's so crazy to me.
9,000 years. It is one of the oldest historical finds in the United States as of this point.
Because we don't have a lot of that.
We don't.
We talked about that before, how the United States is relatively new compared to, like, Europe and the UK. Wow.
I tried to find specific numbers on the amount of shipwrecks within the triangle, and I couldn't pinpoint anything. Mostly when I searched that, I found the total amount of shipwrecks in Lake Michigan. I think they found 592, but they assume there's like 614 because of ships that never made it to their destinations.
Mm-hmm. You know who should drink a lot of tea?
You.
Yes. Yes,
and
I should.
The dog man of Michigan.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so last week I talked about POTS and what it is. Today I'm going to talk about the different subtypes of POTS and its causes, and then treatment and other things that people tend to have when they have POTS. I've kind of mentioned hyperPOTS or hyperadrenergic POTS. I don't know how to say that word. I've looked it up. It just doesn't work in my mouth. But everybody calls it hyperPOTS, and it's basically your sympathetic nervous system is overreactive. And this type makes that stress response that I talked about last week, when your body puts out those adrenaline hormones to make your heart beat faster and your veins constrict. In this type of POTS, that stress response like super overreacts. And one of the hallmark signs of hyperPOTS is that your blood pressure actually increases while you're standing. To test for this type, what they did is during my tilt table test, when I was at the height of my bad symptoms, they draw blood, and then after they laid me down and I kind of returned to my baseline, they draw blood again. And there's a specific type of hormones called the catecholamines, and if you have hyperPOTS, that number will be pretty low when you're sitting or laying, and then it'll like be 6,000 when you're standing. And that's the sign that your body is super overreacting by you standing up, and it's just putting all of this adrenaline hormone into your body and forcing your body to just deal with it. This type tends to cause more stomach issues than the other types of POTS, which is what I was running into. Something about that adrenaline response probably kicks your like gastrointestinal system into overactiveness too. And so there was a lot of nausea, a lot of appetite suppression, just not being hungry. Now that I know what's going on, it's easy to say, oh, I can't eat right now because my adrenaline is so high. I'm just like ready to go all the time. I'm in fight or flight mode all the time. Another type of POTS, and this is the most common one, is hypovolemic POTS. Like I said, it's the most common type of POTS. It's also usually almost everyone with POTS has some sort of this hypovolemic type. And then the third one is neuropathic POTS, which is when peripheral denervation or loss of nerve supply leads to poor blood vessel muscles, especially in your legs and abdomen. So you can have one type of POTS or all three or a combination of the three, and most people will have the hypovolemic POTS.
Sorry to interrupt, but can we just take a minute to appreciate how absurdly ridiculous they've named. Okay, first of all, POTS itself is a ridiculous name.
Yes.
And then you have hyperPOTS and neuroPOTS. And
hypoPOTS.
And I don't like it.
I agree.
I don't approve of any of it.
Especially living in a day and age where all the states are legalizing marijuana.
Right.
It's very interesting for me to have to be like, oh, well, I have POTS. And they're like, okay. Causes of POTS, nobody knows the actual cause or why our body does this. It can occur on its own, so you can just have POTS. Or other illnesses, especially...
that sentence. Or you can just have POTS.
You can just have POTS.
I have PANS, too.
Nope. Only POTS. Or it can be caused by other illnesses, like chronic fatigue syndrome. Addison's disease can actually cause POTS, which is a disease that both of our dogs have.
What about PCOS?
Probably, because that's a that's a hormonal issue, and probably causes fatigue and blood supply issues and all kinds of stuff. So, yes, so it can be caused by other illnesses like Addison's disease, diabetes, Lyme disease, other autoimmune conditions. It is actually being studied now as a possible autoimmune condition. So the body just attacking itself by, not doing anything it's supposed to. And neuropathy issues. Obviously, if there is a neuropathic POTS, then if you have neuropathy issues, you could end up with neuropic POTS. It can be diagnosed in children, but it's not as common, although they are seeing a correlation with puberty.
Oh. Is it something that they consider
genetic?
Hereditary? I was hereditary. All I could think is heretic, because I just watched a show where they call the guy the black heretic.
They haven't found the exact genetic connection yet, but they do see some of it in families. Sometimes it comes on after a viral illness or pregnancy or other injuries or accidents. Even surgery can cause POTS. So again, the scientists aren't really sure what causes bodies to react like this, but it just seems, which is why I think they're leaning more towards autoimmune condition, because it just seems like something that is triggered and then attacks the body.
So, like, you can be talking to someone who had a baby, you're like, yeah, my hair got really shiny and curly after I had a baby. And they're like, oh, I got POTS.
Yeah. You're like,
great.
Well, and then, like I said last week, 50% of people with POTS say their pregnancy made their symptoms better, which was 100% what
opposite for you, right?
No, it was 100% the same for me.
Oh, during pregnancy. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
One of the symptoms that has been my worst and most frustrating symptom is horrific night sweats. And when it started, I was in my 20s, so it was much too early for like perimenopause or menopause symptoms. And then they went away while I was pregnant. So this whole time, anytime I bring it up, everybody's like, oh, it must be a hormone issue then, because if it went away during pregnancy, it must just have something to do with your hormones. And they've been pushing, that I'm maybe in perimenopause, even though I'm only 37 years old. But also, maybe it's POTS. And I think I've said this before, but we did talk a little bit last week about advocating for yourself. And I hate to say this, but if you do have the option to bring a trusted male with you to doctor's appointments, as awful as it sounds, apparently medical professionals listen better to men still in this day and age. And I 100% believe, because my ER visit was the first time Zach ever went to a doctor's appointment with me. And him looking at the doctors and saying, no, you don't understand. Something is wrong with my wife. I feel like that was the first time people really started to listen to me. And they ordered extra tests, and they did a head CT, and they did all of these things that I really truly feel like if I had been there by myself, they would have told me I had anxiety and sent me home.
I am not even going to say anything, because we know that I'm not okay.
That'll just get Jessica ranting again. So here is the most ridiculous part of this for me. Now that I have my diagnosis and I got through that ridiculous part, the treatment for POTS. So I rattled off a bunch of symptoms last week and a bunch of triggers, which again was, basically anything enjoyable or happy in this world. So the treatment for POTS is primarily lifestyle based, and it primarily involves avoiding all of those triggers that could make your symptoms worse.
So you can't exercise, but also
you should exercise.
You need to exercise.
That is, so there are three main focuses besides medication, which I will touch on just at the end of this a little bit. The first main focus is to increase fluids. So everybody's told, 64 ounces of water a day. My nurse practitioner told me to aim for 100 ounces a day, which is a ridiculous amount of water.
You also must have to pee like all the time.
Constantly. All the time. And they also, because when you're consuming that much fluid, you can end up with an electrolyte or a sodium imbalance, because you're essentially flushing out all of your nutrients. You should also take electrolytes or salt tablets or electrolyte pills, something to kind of balance.
Of course, you can't eat potato chips or something.
I mean, I have increased my consumption of pickles by a ton, because pickle juice is actually a great electrolyte with all the sodium.
I think I've heard of people drinking it for like hangovers.
Absolutely,
and stuff.
Yes. So, especially with one type of POTS being the hypovolemic POTS, or low blood fluid, basically. So by increasing the amount of fluid you're drinking and the amount of sodium that you're taking in, that helps increase the amount of blood you have in your body, essentially. And exercise is, of course, the second most recommended treatment option, but there are recommended protocols that start with extremely light exercises that can be done laying down, because a lot of people can be bedridden, especially in the beginning of their POTS journey. There's even, you can see physical therapists, and there's a protocol for how to do everything. They also recommend focusing on legs and core exercises to strengthen those muscles to then be able to get the blood back into the rest of your body faster. And cardio exercises like swimming or rowing or recumbent bikes, so that you're always sitting or laying instead of being in an upright position. Modified yoga is also recommended because the stretching and the blood flow, and then also even the meditation and the mind and body exercises that go with that, because there is some anxiety to having tachycardia or having a high heart. Yeah, the mind body focus of yoga and being able to calm down some of those symptoms when they're happening. It's not an anxiety attack that you can think your way through, but sometimes it is helpful to be able to just calm that heart rate down and breathe through it. Talking about yoga, I talked about how people with POTS have probably been masking or dealing with their symptoms for years without knowing it, just in how they fidget or change their position. The other big recommendation that I thought was absolutely ridiculous, and I'm still mad that it's working, is compression garments. Because I do not want to be a 90-year-old woman at 37 years old, but I found these pretty fantastic tie-dye compression socks.
I did notice them fairly quickly when you came in.
And I have been reading this as a recommendation since I started researching POTS. And it just seemed so ridiculous to me. I have put it off until I actually had my diagnosis. But the specialist told me the best way to do it is even to put the compression socks on before you even get out of bed in the morning. Which, now that I've done my research, makes sense, because if you stop the blood from getting to pool in your legs, then you don't have to work as hard to keep it out of there. So when you see me this summer wearing ridiculous knee-high tie-dye socks, don't tease me, but please tell me that you love my socks, because... So, yeah, also, abdominal binders. I wore one for most of the day today, especially because a lot of my symptoms tend to be stomach symptoms, and again, that also helped.
POTS is literally the most annoying thing ever.
Yeah, and the rest of it is lifestyle changes that include avoiding triggers. One of the main ones they recommend is avoiding hot showers, which even my notes from my doctor, people refuse to do. I refuse to start taking cold showers. So instead, we try to minimize fall risks. So people buy, shower chairs. If you're at risk of fainting in a hot shower, then you sit through a shower.
They have a lot of those bars and stuff that you can put up. And
I think that probably explains why I've preferred baths most of my life, because at least I'm already sitting down when I'm sitting in my hot water. I can't eat heavy carb rich meals. They recommend less than 600 calories per meal, and then eating 6 to 8 times a day.
Yeah.
Other things, avoiding alcohol, because obviously that dehydrates you. Avoiding caffeine. She said if I had to have caffeine, it would be best to also drink 2 glasses of water for every cup of coffee that I drink. But luckily, caffeine is something that I've mostly cut out anyway, because I've been having all these crazy symptoms for years.
Well, and a lot of that, if you do have to have a large meal, or if you want to have a large meal, you're going to be on vacation and you're going to have large meals, at least you can accommodate for those by either maybe cutting, a cheeseburger in half, taking half of it back to your hotel with you, or compensating with water.
Right.
And cutting out caffeine entirely that day, and trying a meal that's not as sugary.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing. So, there are some good workarounds. It's just once you identify things more.
Exactly. Coming here today, I know that I like to have a Dr. Pepper and gummy bears while I record. It's become a habit. It's a comfort thing. My 46 milligrams of caffeine in a Dr. Pepper that I think I can handle. But I also made sure I drank like 80 ounces of water today before I even got here. And I am going to wear these awfully uncomfortable compression garments all the time, because if that's really all it takes to make me feel like I can function during the day, then okay, I guess.
What kind of medications will they put you on if you...
So there aren't a ton of options, but beta blockers, which is typically seen in people that have heart conditions.
It's a thinner, right? Or no?
No, it actually helps block that adrenaline response that speeds up your heart rate.
Okay.
So those are options. If the hyper type of POTS is affecting your blood pressure, they might do antihypertensives to bring your blood pressure down. The problem with the beta blockers and the blood pressure medications are if you are someone that has low blood pressure while sitting and only have these struggles when you're standing, then it can be really hard to find a dosage that works, that cuts the spikes but doesn't drop your blood pressure so low when you're relaxing that you die.
One thing if you are concerned about this, would it make sense to ask your like GP, your nurse and your GPs at your physical to take your blood pressure while you're standing?
Absolutely.
So if you're concerned and you think, gosh, this could actually be me. Now, would it
not only your blood pressure, but your heart rate would be the biggest factor.
Okay.
So when they're looking for POTS, the deciding factor is just your heart rate. If your heart rate goes up 30 beats per minute from resting to standing. So a lot of people get, I don't want to say gaslit by the medical professionals, but
gaslit by the medical professionals.
Yeah, if you walk into your appointment and you're a little stressed and you just sat down and they put the thing on your finger and your heart rate's at 90 because, you were running late and the waiting room was full and you had to carry all your stuff back and they weighed you.
Got your kid with you.
And
whatever.
And then you stand up and it only goes up to 110. Well, it only went up 20 points, but was that really your resting heart rate? Or if they gave you 10 minutes to sit there and talk to the doctor and chill a little bit, and then and then really your resting heart rate is only 70, and you stand up and it goes up to 110. Well, then it's gone up over 30 beats per minute, and it has to be sustained. So during the tilt table test, they had me stand there hang out there for 20 to 30 minutes, but 10 minutes is usually, as long as it doesn't shoot up to 30 beats a minute and then drop down right away within the first 2 minutes, as long as there's some sustained rise there. So it's absolutely something. I mean, all the offices now use the little finger monitor for the pulse, and that's an easy thing to just be like, look what happens when I stand up.
Yes. Oh, and I think at my doctor's office, they might think I was weird, but they would go with it. Mm-hmm. And they would, especially if they noticed a big spike like you're saying. And I can't imagine very many doctors' offices saying, just sit down.
Right. Oh, well, we can get through that by just not having you stand.
And I'm always a little embarrassed to be like, well, I was reading about, POTS or PCOS, or I heard it on a podcast, and symptoms really match up to me because I know the doctors hear that kind of thing a lot. And so I'm always kind of embarrassed. But seriously, it's your life and your health, and they're with you for 4 minutes, and if they judge you for that 4 minutes, then so be it.
And they're seeing so many patients a day.
Yes.
It's hard to go from patient to patient and think of every little thing that could be going on with each patient. I feel like if I was a doctor, especially if somebody came in with actual research, like here's a printout from the Dysautonomic International Society about like what the symptoms are and how to diagnose it, and I meet all of these symptoms, then
I just hope that someone walks
they
in
wouldn't
with
be
our
like,
card
well, everybody thinks they have POTS. Everybody thinks they have ADHD.
Episode 46 of this podcast. You just have to listen to the Michigan Triangle first, and then I have all of the symptoms she's talking about.
Right. I think that's fine. Other medications that they have, there's some kidney medications that help your body hold on to sodium and water content. and they're actually finding some stimulants help with the constriction of the veins.
Okay.
It obviously worked too well for me, or something wasn't working well. I do have hope now that I can work with my psych and my autonomic specialist now to find a combination of medications that will allow me to go back on my stimulant medication and then have some of the POTS symptoms be controlled by, my fantastic compression stockings and some medications. Because I would like to function as a whole person instead of choosing between like my brain or my body functioning.
Right.
So that was the other part
You're
of being
gonna find out
diagnosed.
You can't wear glasses anymore.
Right? They're gonna be like, well, you can be on this medication, but it can't be used with glasses.
Which, by the way, like, what? But that's gonna be what it is.
Yeah, there's always got to be something. And then my last part, just some other disorders that seem to have some connections to POTS include various joint hypermobility disorders, including Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and mast cell disorders, which are like allergic or histamine disorders, so your body overreacts to anything that irritates it, basically. And going back to the hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, do you know what else tends to correlate pretty high with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome?
I was going to mention this. ADHD.
So,
I was thinking, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of ADHD people. And we're so uncoordinated that sometimes we don't know that we have it.
Because we just blame our injuries on being clumsy from our ADHD.
I walked into a table today. Legit walked into a table today.
Walls, doors.
All the time.
So there isn't any actual research yet to suggest that ADHD has a high correlation to POTS. But I would almost guarantee that correlation is there as well.
Wow, it's really wild.
And then it makes it, not that I'm a scientist or know enough to actually make this correlation, but the idea that, like, my brain can't make the right connections or gets too confused by what's going on to make the right connections or sort everything properly, it would also make sense that the rest of my body gets confused when everything is going on and doesn't know what to focus on.
Let's just send it to your legs.
Right. Oh my gosh, we're doing something.
Wait, why are these compression socks here? Your blood vessels curse you every time they try to travel down to your legs.
And my eyeballs, the binocular vision dysfunction is attributed to ADHD. It's like my muscles don't want to correspond the way they're supposed to. They don't want to work together. Every part of my body, every atom in my body can be distracted by something and not work properly.
Why do our bodies hate us?
Right?
There's so many things that just... Do you remember at the end of the Eclipse episode how I was really disappointed in everything?
In life in general.
I'm sort of feeling that way about bodies and advocacy in healthcare, which I'm not even going to start on.
Well, the good news is all I have to do is give up everything fun in my life except for these cool tie-dye socks.
And water.
And water. Drink all the water. Wear some cool socks.
It's fine. You won't have time to do anything except pee anyway, so you're not going to miss out.
do some yoga.
Oh.
And I'll be good as new.
Well, I'm thrilled you got your diagnosis, though. Good for you.
Yay!
And
it is good. It feels very validating.
Yes.
It's nice to know that it's
Did
not all in my
brain. Did you send it to your
brain.
GP with a highlighted?
Not yet, but my cardiologist did see it, and he was like, "Oh, I suppose you do have POTS. Thanks. I'm not gonna see you anymore. I'm going to a different cardiologist."
Please.
I've already switched out of his office.
All right. So another episode where Jessica ends frustrated.
I'm gonna pick something much happier next week.
Do something
bring
really,
you some
really
joy.
sad, but at the end, be like, and then there was a party, and there were puppies, and pull a puppy out of your bag, and then I'll be like, woohoo!
Me too, actually.
Zach and Ryan are going to be thrilled.
We'll just have to share custody of the puppy.
It'll be the Dungeons and Dopamine puppy. The Dungeons and Dopa-Puppy.
I mean, how can you turn it down?
Guys, we need you to Patreon real bad because this dog's probably going to be
We need
expensive.
a Dopa-Puppy.
It's probably going to have ADHD.
We're going to name it Potts.
Tell people we meant to name it Spot, but we screwed up.
We're probably a little dyslexic as well.
On that note, this has been Dungeons and Dopamine Podcast.
You can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and on YouTube.
You can support us on Patreon. You can support us and Spot Pots on Patreon. www.patreon.com/dungeonsdopamine.
You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit.
You can reach out on any of those social medias and or at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions.
Now you're adding a bark. For Pots.
For Pots. Spots the Pots.
For Pots. Okay, thanks. We love you.
We love you. Okay,
bye.
bye.